and welcome to Fighting Fiction. If you are someone who has had a public school education or have children who are going to have a public school education, you might want to watch this video, okay? Because I was one of those people who was taught about the controversial issue or subject known as evolution, okay? This is something that is taught in every major university, every public school. It is taught as fact and that it's science, and you just need to accept it because we have all this evidence. And I'm going to start the video anyways by going over some of the evidence that I was exposed to as a student and how it shaped my mind and how it's probably shaped your mind. And you will be surprised to learn that many of these are hoaxes and were proven to be hoaxes before we were taught about them. Now, I know that exposing evolution hoaxes throughout history is not going to disprove evolution. Okay, I'm not saying it does, but I want to go ahead and show you some of these because these are some of the ones that shaped my mind as a young student and have probably shaped your mind. So I'm going to reveal the hoaxes real quick and then move on to ways that we can disprove macroevolution or the common ancestor. Okay, so let's first look at this picture of these embryos. They are actual drawings, okay, and they're not actual microscopic pictures of embryos in development. These were drawn by a man named Ernst Haeckel over 100 years ago. They were in the 1800s. He drew these because his theory was that evolution took place during embryonic development. So he drew pictures of embryos and how similar they are during early stages. Okay. Now, sadly, after these were published and put in books, they were found to be inaccurate, really inaccurate. Okay. And when you look at this picture here of the top of the screen, you have his drawings. At the bottom half, you have the actual way these embryos look. Okay, not similar at all, but they're still in books today. I saw them in books when I was in school. Okay, they're in college text. They're in state and national tests, and they are shown as evidence of macroevolution. Okay, that's just one. The next one we have is the Piltdown Man hoax. And the Piltdown Man hoax actually fooled many scientists for about 40 years. And it was something that really kind of shocked the scientific community into realizing, hey, we can be tricked. Okay. And this was something that had been put in a museum and put on display and was world renowned as a human ape man link. Sadly, it was just a painted skull fragment and jaw fragment, and the jaw fragment was that of an ape, and the teeth had been filed down to look more human-like. The next hoax we're going to look at is known as the Nebraska Man, and this one you'll find kind of funny. And this is a ape man link that was found, and pictures were drawn of this man, and guess what? The evidence they found was a tooth. Okay, a single tooth, and it was later determined that this tooth actually belonged to an extinct species of pig. Okay, so not an ape-man link at all. The next hoax is known as the Java Man, and the person responsible for this fraud was a student of Haeckel, the same one that did the embryo drawings you saw earlier. Okay, he found a skull fragment and a leg bone, which ended up being part of a gibbon, okay, which is a species of monkey or ape. Now, this nice rendition of the Neanderthal that I was taught about in college a few years ago was proven to be just an old man with arthritis and rickets. Yet, sadly, he is still taught about, and almost every American is familiar with the terminology Neanderthal. Now, the Archaeoraptor is something that is still being taught in schools as a link between dinosaurs and birds, and it was actually released by National Geographic a few months before it was revealed to be a hoax. Okay, not sure why they chose to publish this before, even though it had been turned down by academic journals. But they really wanted to be the first, kind of like when a story breaks, they wanted to be the first to publish it. but it too was a hoax. Now, there are many more hoaxes in evolution, but I'm going to conclude with showing you the coelacanth because I was taught about this in 5th grade, and I remember seeing pictures of this fossil and cartoons of how this actual fish, which its fins looks like they could be a transition into a creature growing arms. So they then showed me some collaterograms of this transition of how this fish eventually started walking on land to become one of the many land species we have today. Okay, that sounds good. And I really believed it because I was in 5th grade. We'll believe anything when we're young, and we are taught to trust our teachers. Here's one of the pictures I looked at. Okay, you can see good artwork. Not going to lie about that. But wait, what is this? Is this a human fossil? Nope, that's a real human, and that's a real coelacanth. These things do exist. They're just rare. Okay, so that hoax was put away as soon as we found real ones. Now, the reason I have shown you some of these hoax evidence is not mainly to disprove evolution, but is to open your mind to the fact that you might have been lied to, and there may be an agenda behind making sure everyone that is in public school in America, which is most of us, that evolution is scientific, it has lots of evidence to support its theories, and you just need to accept it because the experts tell us it's true. And if you don't believe it, you are a creationist that thinks that the earth is like 6,000 years old, which leads me to my next point: how old the Bible says the earth is, and does it really say it's 6,000 years old? So let's take a look. Let's go to the book of Genesis. And in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Doesn't tell us a time period, it just says in the beginning. And it says, "Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." Okay? So it doesn't tell us when it starts, it just says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And now the earth was formless and empty." And some versions say it was void, okay, or without life. So all the life that was on the earth before our time was wiped out. Okay? Doesn't give us any indication of that chapter and what happened on the earth. I'm assuming, based on a theory that my dad actually came up with that sounds pretty logical, is that the evil one was sent to the earth during that time, and he wiped out all the life forms, like the dinosaurs and stuff. So that's an interesting theory. I'm not saying it's true, but it's a theory to consider, since we do know that the devil was in the garden, or the serpent was already on earth, and it speaks nothing about his being placed on earth. We just know that he was there to talk to Eve. Okay, no one ever really has questioned his origin or how he got there. Okay, it doesn't say that God made all these things and then he made the serpent or the evil one. Okay, he was already there, probably before all this creation stuff started happening. Okay, just something to kind of get your mind thinking. So now we're going to switch gears and we're going to use a scientific approach and talk about a way to disprove evolution using something called irreducible complexity. Kind of a hard word to say. Now, here's two really good ways to look at that. First, let's look at this little bacteria here. It has a flagella, a trait that seems like it could have been acquired very simply and passed on to its offspring, because after all, it's just a whip-like structure or a tail. How hard is it to acquire a tail? I mean, after all, your sperm have these, and you have billions of sperm that you're making if you're a guy. So let's take a look at what these flagellas actually look like from the experts. Oh my gosh, look at this thing. It looks like part of a car that fell off, and I don't know anything about cars because they're in fact too complex. And that's exactly what these things are like. Okay, they have all these different parts. Okay, I think around 40 or so essential parts. Now, what would happen if you take away even just one of these parts? The entire thing doesn't work. Okay, And this is very similar to, let's say, something more simple like a mouse trap. Okay, these things are designed, and you can see here they have quite a few different parts, but not a lot, not as many as the flagella. And if you remove any part of the mousetrap, you can try this at home with a mousetrap of your own, it will not work. Okay, Darwin says that for a trait to be passed on, it has to be beneficial. Well, in order for it to be beneficial, it has to have all 40 parts. Talking about the flagella. Sorry, I'm jumping around. Okay, so that is just a flagella on a bacteria, not a human eye, nothing too complex, just a little tail-like structure on a single-celled organism. I could go on to say a lot more about irreducible complexity and how if you didn't have 10 different factors in your blood, it would not clot, and all humans before us would die if they didn't have all 10 of those different factors. I could go on to say lots of different things about this, but I'd rather you just go and look it up for the sake of time. If you're really interested, please, I encourage you, look up irreducible complexity. I didn't invent that term or the ideas associated with it. Okay, I came across this by looking for truth, like hopefully you're doing right now. So we're going to switch gears again, and I'm going to move into another thing that really bothers me, and that's the timeline of Earth itself as given to us by the experts. Okay, and if you look at the timeline of Earth, and you realize that it's only 3.8 billion years ago that we are claiming that a single-celled organism appeared, okay, since we have fossil evidence of this bacteria, okay, and we have this bacteria or single-celled organism 3.8 billion years ago. Not sure how we know that, but we do. And that from then until now, we now have 5 billion known species. Okay, so 3.8 billion years ago, and then you now have 5 billion known species to have ever existed. If you're not good at math like me, you should still be able to tell that that's more than a species per year. Okay, that's exactly or near 1.3 species per year that would be appearing from an existing species. Okay, and you can say, well, the movement's not linear. It's not like one and then another and then another. Well, actually, Darwinian evolution tells us that it's very slow, gradual changes. Very slow, as in we in human history have never seen a change in species. Okay? We have tons of breeds of dogs. They are all dogs. They're all the same species. We have tons of different types of cats. We have tons of different skin colors of humans. That's because we have many different genes. We are polygenic organisms. Okay? We have many genes that can code for many different things. I could have 5 kids, which I only have 4. They all look different. Okay? Now, you're probably thinking that I'm just trying to brainwash you into believing my way based on the evidence that I'm showing you. So I'm going to actually open your eyes to the fact that there are only about 540 species of dinosaur that have been named. Okay? Then there was a mass extinction. So this wasn't very long ago. This wasn't billions of years ago. This was millions of years ago. So you take that total number that we have of 5 billion species and subtract the small number of 540. So you're telling me that from the time of this mass extinction that happened, I think it was what, 65 million years ago? I could be wrong. I'll have to look this up again. But from then until now, you have 5 billion, and then you subtract the 545. Okay, that's how many species would have to have been made from existing species within that short amount of time. And we will do the math. I will do it. Okay, you can do this with me if you want. Okay, so get out a calculator, and here we go. Now, to set this up, you're going to want to do species per year, which means you'll be dividing the number of species by the number of years. And you will have something like 5 billion, which is 5 and 9 zeros, divided by 65 million, which is the number 65 and 6 zeros. Okay, once you have that plugged in, you'll get a number like this. This means that somewhere around 77 species per year would be made from existing species. This is astronomical. We would be studying this phenomenon with our eyes without the use of time-lapse photography. We would be seeing people mutate into things as we are talking to them. Okay, we would have got to, or we would have been able to watch the ape-man transition happen. Okay, or our ancestors would have. Okay, so just something to think about if you've never done the math. Okay, you can do this math in different ways. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't teach math, I teach science. But I married a math teacher and had received some help from her on how to make sure I was doing this right. Okay, so that's just a very interesting way to look at the impossibility of evolution. Now, the last thing I'm going to use to disprove evolution, we'll look at a cell, because a single-celled organism is where the origins of life is said to have began as a single-celled organism, and that sounds easy and simple to understand unless you took biology in high school and found out that cells have many different parts. Even what we call the archaebacteria, or the ones that do not have a nucleus like the prokaryotic cells. So even they have what is called a cell membrane. Every cell on Earth ever has a cell membrane. Okay, cell membranes are made up of phospholipids, billions of phospholipids per cell. Okay, now let's just say that those phospholipids that were needed were made somewhere in nature. Where do you think phospholipids are made in nature? You guessed it, they're not. They're not made in nature. They are made inside of an organelle within the cell. So you have these pre-existing phospholipids, which we have no clue where they came from, forming together, billions of them, that were made by who knows what. We have no theory for that. So these pre-existing phospholipids that made themselves were somehow floating around, and guess what they had to surround to make themselves a self-replicating cell? They had to find DNA. So here's the chance of a billion of these being made. First of all, the chances of one of them being made without a cell is 0, but a billion, we're just going to say, do the math and say it's -0. We're going to make that a number since it's a theory. We can make up anything we want. So you have a chance of -0 of these things being made in the first place, and then they have to form around DNA, which has a code. Okay, usually in nature, like never do you find something that has a code just existing and sitting somewhere waiting to be surrounded by all of these phospholipids. But there you go. That is what we are told to believe. You just got to have faith. But if you have Christian faith, it is wrong, and you're a dumb creationist for believing anything else other than the proven facts of evolution, like the ones we've discussed in this video. Now, if you're watching this video and you're an evolutionist, I want to say sincerely, I am not making this to make you feel dumb at all. Many evolutionists are far smarter than I am, and it's easy to be an evolutionist when the ideas and the pictures that are very artistic associated with evolution and the people that are talking about it are very charismatic, and it's all over TV and you hear the word over and over again and it's in magazines. You have been brainwashed, okay? And if you're seeking truth, you're going to find you've been brainwashed in more ways than just evolution. It gets a little deeper than that, okay? And I'm not here to say that I'm a super genius at all. I have been very blessed to find truth in this lifetime, okay? We're only here for a short while, and the purpose of this video is to bring you to truth, okay, and to make you realize you have been deceived, because there is someone out there who wants you to die. And if they can get you to believe that you are here by accident, you will walk this earth until you die. And that's not what God wants to happen. His will is for you to live forever. Okay? And you have free will. You don't have to live forever. But if you do want to live forever, you can, no matter what you have done. It is not by works, but we are living in the period of grace. Okay? The one that has happened after the Son of God, Jesus. You probably know him. You've probably heard that name. He died for you. Don't be offended by this. I don't know why non-believers are offended by Jesus. Okay? This is someone, God's Son, who walked this earth like we do and was tempted in every way that we are and was sacrificed knowingly, willingly for you. Okay? And it's all about that grace, okay, and that love. And I hope that will somehow persuade you into finding a relationship with the Father and the Son and living forever. Okay? It's very simple. It is that simple. It's about grace. It's not about works. And it's about finding truth, and the Holy Spirit will reveal so much truth to you, your brain can't stand it. Okay? I promise it's awesome. It's an awesome journey. If you have any questions, please comment or find us on our Facebook page. I love you guys. God bless.